When she kisses him, he remembers. It's as if his past lives come flooding back to him, much like when we remember who we are by knowing all is love. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of TrueLove Talks, one in a series of videos for Vlogmas in which YouTubers make a video a day on the theme of Christmas. When everything is about Christmas, anything goes. So I managed to find a little bit of time before my sister arrives, so hopefully I can get this video out. Part of the Christmas story is that 3 kings followed the bright star shining in the east to Bethlehem to meet the newborn king. So I want to talk about the map of the stars and how everything is mapped in the stars. Now I'm going to be touching on this for quite some time in the future because my work on Johnny Depp surrounds this topic, so that you can find out what your story is in the stars. Now, we're not going to get into that today, but this will lay the groundwork for that in understanding the significance of the stars, what they represent, and how you can find your story written in the stars. In Hollywood, visitors can view homes of their favorite celebrities if they buy a map of the stars. In ancient times, sailors looked to the stars to find their way home. The map of the stars were placed there to help guide us home. Now, I don't know if you've seen the Netflix series Ancient Apocalypse by Graham Hancock, who is a known shill, but he does have little nuggets of truth in his work. He pointed out that these ancient sites were oriented to the stars and that the ancients were kind of obsessed with the map of the stars and following specifically the sun and Sirius. But that's where his explanation ends. He doesn't get into why it was so significant. He basically says it was entertainment, which couldn't be further from the truth. The signs of the zodiac are created from the imagery of the vortex. This is why it is so important that you know the true cosmology of the Earth, being a flat plane within a double torus. You will have cognitive dissonance in trying to understand this material if you have a globe mindset, or if you've been misled into other flat earth fakeries. Okay, so I'm going to take you through 4 examples of how this is reflected from the imagery of the vortex into the signs of the zodiac. Aries, for example, is the horns of the ram. The ram is the vortex and the opening. It's how things are born into the physical through the mind, which is also the ram or the head, or through the birth canal, which is the vagina, the V. Taurus is the bull. The vortex extends like an umbrella into a ball of electromagnetic energy, creating the torus field. The torus is the Taurus, the bull, the ball, the bow. It is a circle with horns. This is the torus with the vortex, the top of the vortex. Gemini is the twins. The symbol for Gemini looks like twin pillars with wavy lines on the top and the bottom. The pillars represent 2 lines of the equator, but not the equator on the physical plane, the equator in the sky. This is looking at the torus from a cross section with the twin pillars representing the equator. The equator within the torus is where the dual forces of the torus meet, creating a gap. This gap is also within the brain. The wavy lines are the boundaries of the torus at the top and the bottom. Cancer represents the path of the moon, but it also represents the yin-yang pattern created by the movement of electromagnetism in the torus field, and so this is what the torus looks like from above. So I'm not going to do all the signs, but you do get the idea. And these signs are also mapped in the sky as constellations of the zodiac. These signs tell the story of all creation. When starting with Aries, it starts with the physical birth. Go back 3 houses in the zodiac and it starts with conception. Everything has multiple meanings, but they're all connected as they are fractals of itself. You can also place the cards of the tarot around the zodiac because they represent as well these signs and symbols in the sky. The myths, legends, fairy tales, and ancient religious texts are all telling the story of the stars because it's the only story there is. For example, if you've been in the truth community for any length of time, you probably came across syncretism and the story of Jesus being represented by the sun. The story of Jesus begins with him being born in a manger, and the sun itself is born in a manger, cradled in a boat within the vortex. The story of Jesus dying on the cross for 3 days and being resurrected is the story of the sun at the winter solstice. There have been several historical figures with the story of Jesus, such as Alexander the Great, King Arthur, Julius Caesar. Many people will have a life pattern that follows the story of Jesus because it's the story of the sun. So these are the patterns and similarities that you have to look for in your own life when you're interpreting your story. Then you take those key elements and compare them to the myths to find out which God you are. So if you're skeptical of this, you'll probably try to map your story a little too literally onto another story and you won't see the patterns. This is why you have to learn to look through the lens of allegory and symbolism. The constellations of the zodiac are not the only characters in the story. There are planets or wandering stars, which are in turn represented by constellations. There are 88 constellations, and there are 88 keys on a piano. Pi is the ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter, and anno represents time, both backwards and forwards. It also means upwards, as in sky. The piano is the notes in the sky. Key is a note or frequency. Each constellation is likely represented by a note on the piano. Keys unlock doors. Keys are also significant or meaningful clues or indicators to unlock the treasure chest to the heart so that you can return home, because home is where the heart is. Each of the smaller constellations represent a part of the story. For example, let me paint a picture for you here. Alice in Wonderland is a perfect representation of what I am talking about here, especially the cartoon version. Alice is the dreamer. She creates a story by looking at her own reflection in the water, and she makes a wish for a world of her own in which everything would be what it isn't. Then she falls asleep under a tree, the tree being the vortex of the Taurus. She followed the white rabbit, who was running late or running out of time. He led her to a rabbit hole into which she fell, and everything was upside down and smaller. The floor was black and white checkerboard, and all the characters that she encountered were reflections of people she knew in her real world, and they were personifications of constellations in the sky. Our world is exactly the same way. The characters that we encounter in our lives are reflected in the constellations in the sky, and if you can figure out which ones they represent, you can determine your story as it is written in the sky so you can remember who you are in order to return home. Thanks for listening. Hope you're having a great day. I will talk to you tomorrow. Bye for now.